Welcome to this session on software testing and quality assurance. Today's topic is acceptance testing. My name is Vic and I'm from Determining Tools Inc. First, the outline of this session. So, in this session, we're going to talk about types of acceptance testing, acceptance criteria, selection of acceptance criteria, acceptance test plan, acceptance test execution, and acceptance test report. Types of acceptance testing. Acceptance testing is a formal testing conducted to determine whether a system satisfies its acceptance criteria. For instance, uh, you are developing an application which takes in details of the uh, user, say your name and your address. So acceptance testing is when after you finished developing the application, you run test before you release it out to the world. So here you do acceptance testing so that you evaluate whether the system is doing what it is supposed to do. And in this, the types of acceptance testing are user acceptance testing is conducted by the customer to ensure the system satisfies the contractual acceptance criteria before being signed off as meeting user needs. Next is business acceptance testing is very similar. Then we have alpha testing and beta testing. Alpha testing is an internal testing phase performed in a controlled environment by a dedicated testing team to find bugs and usability issues before release. Acceptance testing is testing that is done by the internal uh, team. The company's internal team does it. Beta testing. Beta testing involves releasing the software to a limited number of external users in a real-world environment to gather feedback in terms of performance, usability, and overall quality before it is finally released. Beta testing is done with external or real-world customers. Difference between alpha testing and beta testing is that alpha testing is done by internal employees and beta testing is done by uh, external users. And beta testing also with latest improvements of technology, they're not doing it in one bulk phase. They're going to do it in different phases. So first they release it to 20%, then to 40%, then to 80%, and then finally complete beta testing to the audience. So this is about it. Next, uh, major objectives of acceptance testing. The major objectives of acceptance testing are: first, it should confirm that the system meets the agreed upon criteria, identify and resolve discrepancies if there are any, determination of the readiness of the system to move from internal control to live operations. The selection of acceptance criteria in QA involves defining a set of clear testable conditions that a feature or a user story must meet to consider complete. Key principles for selecting acceptance criteria are: first, focus on the outcome. Uh, Write the criteria around what the user should be able to do, not how they get there. For example, instead of the user logs in with a username and password, instead of the user logs in to the system with a username and password, the user can authenticate and access the system. Second, keep it simple and testable. Third, align with the user story. Your acceptance criteria are the conditions for a specific user story. Next, be user centric. So the criteria that you frame the criteria in a way that from the perspective of the end user and real life experience. So this is about it. Acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria in QA are the specific testable conditions that a feature or a product must meet to be considered complete and acceptable by the client. So what it means is, for instance, you're creating a login to a website. Okay, so the acceptance criteria is going to be user should be able to enter his username and password and successfully log in. If he writes an incorrect password, it should throw an error saying that this is invalid. So this is a simple scenario where you see the acceptance criteria is defined in this way. And the acceptance criteria are defined on basis of the following attributes. So first is functional correctness, accuracy, data integrity, data conversion, backup and recovery, competitive edge, usability, performance, startup time, stress, reliability and availability, maintainability and serviceability, robustness, timeliness, confidentiality and availability, compliance, installability and upgradability, scalability and documentation. Next, criteria, section of acceptance criteria. So the acceptance criteria is nothing but the uh, things which should be taken into consideration in your testing. Okay, to select good acceptance criteria in QA, focus on the end user outcome rather than the implementation. So you'll not look at it from a way that you say, uh, uh, see, there's a bug so for instance, when you look at creating the criteria, you need to look at it from the outcome. The outcome is, if you want to log into a website, you should think about what the user enters and what is the expected outcome. You will not worry about how the code is entered. You will not worry about the implementation. You worry about what is the end user outcome. Okay, there's principles for selecting acceptance criteria. First, be specific and measurable. Two, focus on what and not how. You should think about uh, not the implementation, but you should think about the outcome. Adopt the user's perspective. Include both functional and non-functional requirements. Use clear and simple language. Make them testable. Yes. Next, the next thing that we're going to talk about is acceptance test plan. So this acceptance test plan is created by the testing team when you're doing either alpha testing or when you're doing beta testing. Beta testing is a different report altogether, but when you're doing alpha testing, you'll have a test plan by the testing team. So what they'll do is they'll create. So what this test plan has: introduction, that includes definition of the test. Next, acceptance test category. So you'll divide it into what is the operation environment, what is the test case specification, test ID, title, objective, test procedure. For instance, we can say test ID is 1, test title is login screen, test objective to check whether the user is correctly able to log into the application with the correct username and password. And procedure is you either you do either manual testing or an automated testing. In your manual testing test procedure, you manually enter the username and password, see if it is working. When it is automated, you run scripts to get it done. Next is schedule in the test plan is when you will run this. And human resources, this does not mean human resources, the HR people who deal with getting you in. This human resources means the number of people who are part of this testing plan and testing acceptance test plan. So this is about it. Next, acceptance test execution. So execution is nothing but first group is consists of basic test. So the acceptance test cases are divided into two subgroups. First is the basic test cases and second is the complex test cases. Okay, the first subgroup consists of basic test cases and complex. So basic test cases can be done with manual testing. Complex test cases need scripts and some more number of human resources required. So when you're doing load testing, you need to see whether uh, the application is able to handle more number of people coming in. Okay, so this is an example. Next, the acceptance tests are executed in two phases. In the first phase, the test cases from the basic test group are executed. If the test results are satisfactory, they'll go into the second phase of the complex testing criteria. Okay, next, acceptance test execution activity includes the following details. The developers train the customer on the usage of the system. The developers, so we're not getting into that right now. It's just a basic thing that you will educate the user before you execute the test. So the team will execute the people who are running the test with how the system works, and then they execute it. Next, acceptance test execution. So here it's a continuity of the earlier thing. So this slide here or this presentation here shows us the ACC number, that is the unique number that is used to identify the test. Then acceptance criteria affected, problems and issues description of change required, secondary technical impact, then customer inspect, customer recommended by, and sorry, not customer, it's customer inspect and change recommended by and change approved. So these are the things that will be included in your text execution. Next, report. So after you're done with the execution, you need to get a report and you have to get that signed off at the end. So in this report, you talk about the acceptance test report. The acceptance test activities are designed to reach at a conclusion whether the system is correctly performing what it's supposed to do, whether the system is the objective of the thing is achieved or not. Okay, so that's about it. So the report consists of yeah. So during the execution of the application test, the acceptance team prepares a test report on a daily basis. So whenever you're running the test, so you run tests on daily basis, you generate your reports after the tests are done, and these are sent to sign off by the senior management. They're they they transmit the information on how the test did on that day to senior management, so they know what's actually happening. Next, so how does an acceptance test report look? First, it includes the date, the acceptance test report date. Second, it includes test case execution status. What they do is they show number of test cases executed that day, number of test cases passed, number of test cases failed, so you know what is actually happening. Next, the defect identifier. You submit the defect number and description of the defect. What is the issue? What is the bug that has been caught by the testing people? That next, ACC number is a unique number to identify the not just the document but also the test scenarios created. Next, cumulative test execution status. So here you give details about total number of test cases executed, total number of test cases pass, total number of test cases fail, and total number of test cases that are supposed to be executed. So here we come to the end of the session on acceptance testing in software quality world. Thank you.